Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, bonjour, habari. ¿Cómo estás? Hola. I will learn more of them. And from wherever it is you're joining us from, welcome to another edition. Welcome to another episode of the 360-degree brand story, powered by Akiko Stories, sponsored by African MSME Collective. We hold this conversation bi-weekly to talk about storytelling. If I were to tell people I am discussing storytelling, they will relate it to the books we read when we were young. Once upon a time. They are lived. Or in the land of the great giants or something. Or a season that happened. So we are restricted to that. But then we tell stories every day. We tell stories to ourselves, to our stakeholders, to partners, regulators, investors, and everyone around us, even to our family, on why it is we are doing what we are doing. So in this show, we look at dimensions of storytelling and how they can help you and I execute our strategy. So thank you for spending the next few minutes with us, and welcome aboard. As usual, because this is storytelling, I think I can be allowed to be funny a bit. I am Joe Mukoko, your host, and in the MC circles, they call me the original Mukoko. So thank you, and it's nice for you to be here today. I'm joined by my co-founder and master coach of storytelling. If you give her a statement, she twists it, it becomes a paragraph. If you give her a paragraph, she twists it, it becomes a whole page. If you give her a page, she twists it, it becomes a book, and then it flows. Kyesubire Greg. And today we are discussing about how can we tell our stories better in the next year. We've been talking about reflection and where we are at. What do we want to sell? What image are we creating out? And the reason we are creating the image is because we would like people to buy into our vision. That's where we are at today. And that's where we begin this conversation. And I bring her on stage with a question. Is there a time storytelling went like this, like that? I know it's never linear. It was supposed to go like this, but then it went like this, like that. It refused to follow the flow. I know you have me.
It happens all the time. And I think for me, it's because of how my mind works. So original Mukoko, you know how my mind works at the speed of light. So we were sitting we're in a meeting and somebody was presenting a case and everybody was listening and processing slowly. And because of how I process, how fast my mind processes and these pictures. So I see in pictures. So you're talking, I'm seeing pictures. That's why every time you see me laughing, because you say something and it's so vivid in my mind. So as people were still, for lack of a better word, buffering, I had seen end-to-end, correlated it with 3 other researches that I knew or documentaries I'd watched, test run options in my mind. And as people were still grappling with understanding the information, I had the solution. And what happened is, number one, people in the team felt undermined. They felt ignored, but most of all, they felt unimportant because as team lead and because I saw it end to end with such rapid precision, I made a call and I moved. Later on, somebody comes and says, "Why were you so mean?" I was like, "What do you mean mean?" I just made a decision. In my mind, that's all it was, a decision. And so then that person came and said, "You see, when somebody said, if you put the full stop, us guys are still buffering. You have gone and you processed it, assessed it against whatever matrix that we do not know, and made a decision, and we feel left out." Yeah, so that's one day when it went off track, because that day I was unattentive to what my audience was feeling and thinking. Back to you, original Mukoko.
Undermined, ignored, and appreciated.
Mm,
That was serious.
very.
From where you sit, or stand, or walk, what is a better story?
That's a good one. A better story is a story that connects afresh and new or deeper with your audience. So you've been talking to your audience. We are all talking to audiences. So in this definition, audience is anybody who's buying a product from you, who is serving with you, so they fuel your supply chain. It is anybody who uses your product, is aligned to what you're doing. That's your audience. So a better story means you are able to connect with them in a way that expands how you've interacted before, that brings them closer to you and enriches that relationship. So it's whether it's your suppliers, whether it's your sellers, whether it's your staff team, whether it's your customers, whether it's the regulators. A better story just allows you to connect afresh and deeper with your audience.
Afresh, anew, or deeper with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So let's play it back with to your scenario.
Mm-hmm.
They felt undermined, ignored, and appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had done it differently, what do you think would have happened?
First of all, what I would have done different is which I have now learned to do, is just learn to listen and then ask the team, what do you think? At that point, when you ask the question of what you think, then they feel included, they feel important, they feel appreciated. And then we run the scenarios together. Remember, I ran the scenarios in my head based on data I had in my head and knowledge that was in my head, and they didn't have line of sight of. So it would be to hear their opinions and then run scenarios together. I remember I worked in a place where, so I was in mid-level management, and of course our role as mid-level management is to look for opportunities. So I went for a meeting, we had a pitch made to us, and I thought the pitch made sense. It was not directly what the company was currently doing, but I knew our cash flows were low. So it would be a quick project, in and out, 60 days. We make 300,000-400,000 shillings and we walk away. And I came and presented it, and the way I presented it, the whole team loved it. And the boss asked me, "And why do you think that is up our alley?" And we had a new team member in the team. And the way she dealt with the questions of that, this new team member went and asked my peers, another mid-level manager, what is the problem between the boss and Kyesubire? Right? So many times when we're thinking of a better story, we're thinking about our customers, but we're not thinking about our teams. So in that scenario, like I said before, I'd listen more, I'd get their opinions, we would run scenarios together. As the leader, the buck still stops with me. So there would then be the explanation why we're taking option A as opposed to option B, and it wouldn't be because I said, which is very often for us, the standard answer as business leaders. It just makes sense. To who? Because by the time you pick an option, somebody else's opinion, you may have put it aside. So just have that conversation element. Of course, they know I'm the final decision maker as a business owner, but you have had them, you have made tweaks and adjustments. so then they feel included.
Thank you. It must be inclusive.
Mm.
What other benefits are there to telling the story better?
So I pick three big ones because I believe everything else fits under there. So number one, it helps you document things clearly. So let's say we've changed the process, or we've changed the process of how we receive payments. There is a dairy shop in my hood that used to do both cash and M-Pesa, but they had a lot of losses and the till was never balancing. So what did they do? They gave us 5 months notice, 4 months notice, and said, as at this day, all payments will be mobile banking. We are going cashless. So of course people come, oh, many, many stories, eh? And they just maintained their ground. They said, for us, it works better to be able to find to account, because that means we remain solvent and you're able to access your favorite dairy product consistently. So the messaging helped. So it helps you document clearly what you're going to do, which then does the second thing. It clarifies not only the gaps, but the coming steps, okay? It clarifies the value they will get, which now breeds resonance. Because what we are working to do with our audiences is for them to resonate with us. So for instance, let's use Instagram. The algorithm in Instagram changes every so often, simply based on users' behavior patterns. When Instagram first started, they were purely photos. Videos, you would not get a ranking. And then they added the videos, and it was the longer videos. And then it came down to the 30-second reel, and now it's an 8-second reel. Okay? All these are fueled by what? The short attention span that the current generations have from too much scrolling. So then what do you need to do? You need to ensure that your video is short enough to catch attention span. But if you're looking for a certain age, which is like 25 and under, you're on Instagram, some of them, but you should be on TikTok, okay? So a better story would be, so how would we tell this business story? We would have a version for LinkedIn. We would have a version for Instagram. We would have a version for TikTok. And it could be the same thing, just clipped differently. And then we have these long versions as shows, but we also have room to make shorts. So what does that do? It helps us tell a better story because you pick the catchy segments of it and you're able to reach more people on multiple platforms, which then clarifies what services we offer and how we help businesses. So, but we have a better story must deal with the benefit to the end user, the risk we mitigate for them, the pain we remove from their lives. It's not about, oh, it is high quality product, or it is, this is your problem, this is how we will solve it for you. So then that's why it has the clarifying option and the resonance option.
I like that. Clarity and resonance. How do I take away your pain? How do I help you do your job? And how do I reduce or eliminate the risk completely with the product that I'm doing or I'm selling to you? Afresh, anew, or deeper, in a way that evokes emotions because of the clarity and resonance that the message is giving. How then do we get to tell a better story?
So do you remember the last episode we did? I believe we were talking about the power of reflection. So a better story comes off an audit. We have sat and we have looked around, which is reflecting at what was or what is actually. So you have the was and the is. You look at those two and you figure out what is working, what was working, what has changed, where we at now. So you reflect. Now, reflection could be a survey, it could be a conversation, it could be an assessment of the numbers, it could be looking at your social media feed and seeing which kinds of content generate more impact. So it could be all that. So you must look back and see what was and what is, what has worked, what hasn't worked. So it's deep, very deep reflection. And it's not surface. A better story is not looking at, oh, 10 people here, 12 people there. It's what are the days they comment most? What is the demographic? So your reflection point is to come back and intimately reassess your audience. Who are they? What are their needs? What do they relate to? Then you can already pick out which trends didn't work, and I'd earmark those ones to be dropped. So then that's where you come and you do the assessment. So you've thought about what was. Then now you come and look at this. Now, when I'm saying you look at what to do, what to change, that's the assessment stage. Remember, last week we talked about the difference between assess and evaluate. So this time I want to still keep them separate, but I'll combine evaluate with something. So you'll come and you'll do a deep dive into whatever you have found. So in January, we had 15 regulars. Now we have 150. When did we jump from 15 to 150? What was the trigger point? Are the demographics the same or have they shifted? Look at your sales and figure out what product is selling more. I was talking to a friend of mine who does home finishes, and her higher selling product is tiles. Yes, she moves tiles. I can't even tell you the volumes I saw move. But the better way to sell, because the margins on the tiles are lower, is what are the other things that go with tiles that you can sell to balance off? Because you must maintain a certain price by industry standards. So each of us needs to look into our programs and our products and find we could have a fast moving, low margin product. So then we're struggling with cash flows. You know, that's the whole cash flow conversation right there. Because maybe we're moving, what could be moving? Maybe we're a salon and we're moving hair pieces. We're a beauty shop and the thing we sell the most is hair pieces. But the margin on the hair pieces is 10 shillings per hair piece. So and then we have maybe a shampoo and a leave-in conditioner where the margin is 20%. So we're earning like 150 shillings on each of those. So then you have to figure out do you now begin to couple products. This is what you do in the evaluate stage. So you've assessed what's going on with your customer sales, you've assessed what's going on with your financials, you've assessed what your competition is doing. Then you come to evaluate or rewrite. Okay, so in the evaluate, you see how to now tweak these changes, and so either create bundles or stock up on more of this and less of that, because maybe the body butter is not moving but the shampoo is moving fast. So do we want to continue to try and market the body butter, or do we want to now every so often bundle and say, okay, for everybody selling braids, let's encourage them to buy a hairspray and a leave-in for when they're starting to do their braids, or things like that. So you reflect, you assess, you evaluate and rewrite or reproduce there. And then you come back and you talk to your customer. So I call it present. You come back and you tell them, hi, you told us this in the last survey. This is what we have for you. You also tell the customers by running a campaign, by putting up a series of posts, by sending them an email if you have an email list. And you're like, for us who's in the service business, an email list is a perfect toolkit. So you present the idea, and as you present it, you will always get feedback. Now, the thing about this one, the next thing you need to do is iterate, but iterate is based on feedback. Many of us do not want negative feedback. I think the bulk of us, when we get a negative review, that's the review we delete. But that's feedback that will help us iterate, that will help us tell a better story. All we want is the customers who say, oh, I applied your hair oil my hair grew 5 inches in 10 days, not the person who says your hair oil is a hoax. Mine didn't grow. So for the person who comes back and says it didn't work, then we would need to go back and ask them, what happened? What was your process? How did you apply it? I'll give an example. For those of us who use natural oils, like if you use coconut oil, and then I remember making the move from commercial oils to coconut oil. It was a mess. It was a complete mess. Until I met somebody who explained it to me, and they said this. They said natural oils do not add moisture to the skin, they lock in moisture. The commercial ones have formulations, let me use that word, that add moisture to the skin. So if you are a coconut oil user, you are, what's this oil called? Black seed oil, kalonji. If you are a castor oil user, then when you apply those oils, your skin must be moist so that the oil locks in the moisture. So this was me. I had been trying to understand for a year, 12 whole months of cracked skin because I was behaving like it was a commercial oil. You dry your skin and then you oil, and it looks beautiful for the first 10 minutes. And then here we call it parara. You are white. You are white after that. So you come back to your client and you ask, how did you apply it? So then that will tell you that you probably need tutorials. You've seen on the social media spaces, people giving tutorials of how to do this braid, how to do that digital product, because it's born of the fact that they're working to tell a better story. And you iterate based on the challenges you meet, based on the feedback you get from your clients, and based on the question you must answer. And then you go back. This is a never-ending process. You reflect, you assess, you evaluate and rewrite, you present, you iterate, you go back, rinse and repeat. It's one of those things that year on year, month on month, it is a rinse and repeat process because we are only as good as the last story we told. Only as good as the last story we told.
We are only as good as the last story we told. And in all stories, we must ensure that we maintain clarity and resonance. You've talked about reflection and it being an ongoing exercise. We just won't present ourselves and think it's the end. So for 2025 and going forward, you have given us a very good formula to keep on using. Reflect, assess, evaluate, rewrite, present, iterate, reflect, assess. It's an ongoing process. What would be your parting shot now that we have to keep on telling our story with clarity and resonance?
The thing to remember is your story is never final. What worked yesterday may not work today. What worked yesterday could work today for 10 people, but not 20. So your story is never final. Many of us think that, and it is very many times in the communication space, we say, let's get the messaging done in advance. And that's important. When you're putting out your communication strategy, you need your messaging together. However, that messaging is not final. Depending on what you put out and the response from the market, you will need to adjust and iterate. So when you understand that your story is never final, it's always evolving. I'll give us as an example. In January, we could say we've had contact with 3,300 people, right? Is this number the same now? No. The number is probably closer to 5,000 because between January and November, we have done X number of shows, we have done Y number of articles, we have done Z number of webinars, we have done M number of individual interactions, group interactions, we have participated in prizes, in challenges, in all these kinds of things. So then the foundation of the story is the same, but how I will tell our story to my 17-year-old son, to my 78-year-old mother, to my friend's grandmother, to a customer, a small business, to a major corporate that I want to get work from, it shifts and it changes because I will be addressing it to their need. So understand your story is not static. Your foundational story is the same, but how you tell it is what evolves. So if we're talking about micro businesses, there is a way we'll tell to government that they will give us all the money we need, or at least consider us as executors and implementers of their projects. But there is also a way I will say to a small business owner so that they will be willing to come onto a mentorship program and remove X number of shillings a month for support. So then in that, remembering that the story is not final, the story is evolving, but the foundation remains the same, then it gives you the freedom to always tell a better story, because you assess what yesterday I said 1, 2, 3, it did not work. So why am I repeating the things that didn't work? And then even as we give our teams scripts, they can come back and say, this part of the script is not working. And in a previous place we worked together, we used to work with scripts. And then someone will say, that script is not working. And what was our default? It should work. It works for us. So then is to come and ask the team member, why is this part not working? Could it be that they don't understand something as intimately as I do, so they can't explain it as well? So your story, the foundation is solid, it doesn't change, but how you present it to the different stakeholders is an evolutionary process and never ending.
It's an evolutionary process that is never ending. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been another informative and practical episode from the 360-degree brand story, where brands come alive one brushstroke at a time. Remember, your story is never ending, and you have the opportunity to retell it day in, day out by reflecting, assessing, rewriting, evaluating, presenting, and iterating, and starting all over again. And we are doing this because storytelling helps us execute our strategy. Thank you for having chosen to spend the last couple of minutes with us, and we look forward to hosting you in our next episode, our next show, 2 weeks from now. I remain the original Mukoko, host of this show, and joined by the ever amazing Master Coach, Master Storytelling Coach, Kyesubire Greg. See you in our next episode. Au revoir. Bye. And remember, reflect, assess, rewrite your story. You own your story. Present it, iterate, and start all over again. Till the next show, have a good evening, have a good day, have a good afternoon, and put this into practice. Your story is never final. Let your audiences resonate with the message that you deliver in a clear and simple way. Bye-bye.